My name's Monica Jackson. I am Deputy Provost and Dean of Faculty. And sorry I can't be there with you all today, but I am on campus in my office. But my office, my big thing, we do a lot of things, all things faculty, is what we work on. But the biggest thing that we do is manage your file for actions. And so I'm glad you're joining this session. You're going to learn all things about the file for actions, what to include, how my office can work with you. But I hope that you ask a lot of questions. We are always here to support you, so please don't ever hesitate to reach out to my office. You're going to meet my team in a little bit as well. So I wish you all the best and have a great session. So thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the screen. Do you want to come next? All right, I guess I will say a couple of words about this first. So welcome, everyone. I'm Anna Olsen, Assistant Vice Provost of the Center for Faculty Excellence. Excited to work with the Office of the Deputy Provost and Dean of Faculty, and Abby and Noemi, and also our two faculty associates, Lillian and Karen, to help you get started on your files for action today. So just a quick note of the goals of the session, what will be happening during this hour and 15 minutes. So Abby's going to provide an overview of and some information about resources, about the timeline and process for submitting a file. And then we're going to focus the rest of the presentation piece today on introducing the different components of the teaching portfolio, which is one of the pieces that is really common to all of the different types of files for action. And then we're going to be breaking into groups by faculty category, or file category rather. So you should be already, I think, sitting at the table that corresponds to the type of file you are submitting. And you'll have a chance to discuss your specific type of file. You can also start making an individual action plan. So we have handed out forms that we have put together for you to create a timeline and sort of a checklist. And one of the things just I want to say up front, we're going to reiterate throughout this session, talk to your department chairs, your unit chairs about the specifics to your units, because there are some variations in terms of exactly what is required. And often in addition to what's already on the teaching portfolio list that we will be presenting today. So you have this overview also of the teaching portfolio components on the tables. And then at the end, we're going to wrap up and take some questions before we head out. So I'm going to hand it over to Abby then with that.
Hey everyone, I'm Abby Pushkar. I am the Assistant Dean of Faculty Affairs, so I work underneath Monica, and there are a few team members with Noemi as well, and Jennifer Arnold, and we basically oversee these processes and make sure that they are flowing as should. We work with the CFA, of course, and the academic, or your dean's offices. There's a faculty coordinator and an associate dean, and we're constantly checking back and forth on various questions, various flows, and making sure it's all going. So these are just some key links, and I think that I will take you through the Dean of Faculty's website. The AU website, it's sometimes hard to find things, so I'll just walk through that. But there are a few pieces here. The key dates and deadlines, those are sent mostly by the CFA. It's driving it, and there are a few other items on there, such as your annual reviews, other dates as well. The checklists are behind the portal, and I will show you how to get to there as well. And then the tenure and promotion guidelines are all portal protected, but they are from links through the Dean of Faculty website. So is this connected to the internet? Okay. All right, so, oops. Okay. Oops, sorry. .edu. Okay, so from the main page, I typically just search Dean of Faculty or whatever I'm trying to find. And our website is underneath the Provost website, but we have, oops, let me just accept. We have some quick links here for easy access, and this includes the key dates, the Dean of Faculty and CFA document that's very important when you're putting a file together that will go through the CFA. And then we have some information for faculties on the side here. When Peter was provost, he created a policies and procedures page that just pooled all of the relevant policies for faculty, and some of that is under there. But we also have this information for faculty broken down by faculty type. And this is where you would find the tenure and promotion guidelines for each of your groups. So I will just click on the term and continuing appointment. And here we have the promotion and reappointment guidelines, and that's similar for the tenure page as well. And for the portal, the Dean of Faculty section is underneath underneath academics, Dean of Faculty. And from there, you'll find a lot of the checklists, as well as a few other documents that can help you. And I will turn it back over to the screen. But also, if you do have any questions, please email us at any time, Noemi or I, and we can help navigate to where you need to be.
I just want to clarify that the dates are still this current academic year, but the new documents for the next academic year will
Those
posted soon.
very shortly, yep. And also, we are constantly updating checklists, so make sure you are using the one on the portal. That is always the most current.
And on the dates again, when the new one comes, what we want to sort of have a sense today is the general trend of when these things are expected, not the exact date, but more of it tends to be in October. So let's think about what that means. So that's what we're here today to explore.
And then the other thing I want to highlight too is that your academic unit will have internal deadlines as well, which we do not post just because they do vary from unit to unit. So if there are any other questions about that, your faculty coordinator can help.
So because this is sort of the time to discuss timeline and process. So what happens is because the key dates are the general expectation at the Dean of Faculty office, let's say, like file is expected in October, your dean then needs things, let's say 2 weeks before, and then the chair of the department needs it before the dean, and so forth. And then your committee review within your department needs it even earlier. All that to say that, to give you an example, in psychology, we tend to need these things before classes start in August. So that end of summer is the time to submit some of these files and documents. So that's part of what Anna is gonna try to emphasize to what she's gonna say. But keep that in mind because it will vary by your unit. Some of them tell us, the associate deans, that it depends on how many people are coming up for review in the unit for them to decide how early they need things.
Yeah, the thing to do is to ask who is the chair of the rank and tenure committee in your department. That person will know that they're the first one that has to see it, so they're like the earliest deadline. It's possible that if your department is small, they don't have, like our department was small, and so they would assemble the committee if they're doing something, which wasn't every year. So if there is no committee, you have to get your chair, which it's their job to do it, but.
And the faculty coordinator in your dean's office does administer all of those dates too. So they're a wonderful resource.
And I should say too, just to add on to what Noemi was sharing about the dates, the reason we're doing this now in still March for fall files is because there are some components of your teaching portfolios that you will have to complete in the spring before classes are over. If you want to be able to have them, such as class observations, unless you teach in the summer. And so this is the reason that we have you out here already for files that are not due until this fall. All right. So I'm going to move on to the next component. So we did decide the purpose really is to help you get started and to make a plan, but also to start with the piece of your file that is common to all the different types of files. That is a teaching portfolio. And we're going to take turns to talk about the 5 different required components. One more reminder again, there may be additional components within these that are required by your units in addition. So the 5 items you see here on the screen are also represented in this visualization. This is figure, which you have a copy of. There's one on each table. We'll share this as an attachment. It's also available on the Dean of Faculty website. But essentially, the top row there, the 2 red squares are required. This one thing is required in every single file. And then from the 3 blue bubbles, you can choose You can choose from different options. In some cases, you need 2 items. Some departments require that, so that's why you have to go back and ask them, make sure you know what you're required to include in your file.
To clarify, all of them are expected, meaning something from C, from D, and from B.
One from each. They can't be substituted across categories. And so I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the first item here, the holistic teaching narrative. And just out of curiosity, how many of you have written something like a teaching philosophy before? I know some of you are up for reappointment, continuing, and tenure, so you've done it before. Feel free, by the way, to interrupt, to raise your hand, to share, to add to the conversation if there's anything that we don't include that you think is important for somebody else in the room to know. I saw a hand already. Yes. Yes, absolutely. We will share the presentation with you afterwards, as well as any handouts, so that you have extra copies as well. So when you go about or get started to think about writing what's called a holistic teaching narrative, sometimes it's called a teaching statement. It's really about articulating the principles and goals that guide your teaching, and then provide examples of how you enact those goals. So it really is intended to give the reader of your file a really good idea of what you're like a teacher, as a teacher, what a class might look like. And so the key components really are your principles, your goals, the strategies, and then also the impact that you anticipate that those strategies have. And then also some future goals of how you think you can improve or change what you do. And it can be a pretty big endeavor to start something like this from scratch, but I can reassure from my own experience a few months ago that once you get started, it's actually quite enriching and fun. It's all about self-reflection. So really sit down and start reflecting on your teaching. You can use a set of guiding questions that are available at the website. It's a CFE website that you'll have access to when we send you the PowerPoint as well, the direct link. There are actually many different ways to do this. That's the bottom line. Like you can choose to do it in different ways. It's recommended to write this as a narrative first person piece, and then really to focus on giving examples of specific teaching practices integrated throughout that piece of writing. Should also say that the holistic teaching narrative is typically also exactly the same as the first piece of your comprehensive narrative. So where you talk about your teaching, essentially, before you start talking about service and research and so forth. One other thing I didn't include on the slide that I recommend is actually to try to see if you if you find a peer, somebody in your department or even outside of your department, and ask if they can share, just to see some different versions of what a holistic teaching narrative can look like. It doesn't mean that you should be doing the same thing, but it helps to have the perspective and just to see the various different ways in which you can write this. Yeah, so I think we could take some questions intermittently too. Does anyone have any questions specifically about this? Yes. It's part of it, yes. So it needs to be whatever component of your full narrative. I don't think there are any, yeah. Units might have guidelines, and I think it probably depends a little bit on what type of file. Like, if you are very, very research active, you might want to, I would check with your unit just to be sure. But I would say something like 1,000 words at least for the teaching statement, maybe 800 or so.
In my understanding is that the length increases as you go up in rankings. So
Okay.
For example, if you're a instructor going to Yale, maybe you don't have to write as much versus if you go for first. Then
Right.
you really show what you have done.
Yeah. And that kind of corresponds to if you apply for continuing appointment as a term faculty or even 3-year appointment, you have more substance to provide because you're including more years of teaching evaluations and such. And you can also include quotes from your teaching evaluations as sort of evidence in that teaching narrative to show sort of what the outcomes of your strategies are in the students' perspectives. Exactly. It's a component of the comprehensive narrative. And it's typically is enough to include it in the comprehensive narrative, but in some units, they might prefer that you also include it at the beginning of your teaching portfolio as a single file, but it is the same. It shouldn't be a different piece of writing. It's the same.
Have you been looking at some
Yeah,
of
I'm
them?
trying to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah. There are on the CFE website about writing holistic teaching narratives, some examples of different styles and different ways to think about this that you can explore as well. And then you can always come and request a one-on-one consultation with anyone in CFE to sort of bounce ideas off of. And what we're going to do as well is we're going to hold a follow-up longer workshop in May as part of the May faculty workshops, where you can bring your file in its current state and just sit there and work on it together. We'll provide refreshments, we can answer questions, you can talk to each other. So I think we were debating what the exact date. It's either the 12th or the 13th, but in the follow-up email after this, we will give you the exact date so you can save the date in your calendar for that particular session. Any other questions? Yes, Johannes?
So the teaching narrative, this be written from scratch every single time, or can you also just build upon something we had earlier and then update it, of course, with everything that happened?
Good question. I mean, I assume you can build on it. Yeah. I mean, presumably your teaching changes a little bit over time, maybe.
Like current and accurate,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
if there's things that haven't changed, yeah, it's not like self-plagiarism, like with.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely use chunks of text.
Nice, okay.
We have Rachel here.
Yeah.
I would say that another thing that changes is that if there has been a letter from a previous appointment period at AU, you want to address any comments that were given to you in the previous review. And so that's part of what will be different in the next writing.
Yes.
How strict is the word cap if I run more words than word cap on the canvas?
It's strict, it gets sent back.
Yeah.
CFA wants to fix the word count.
And it includes everything, including the header and everything, so. I mean, yeah, it's. Any other questions about the holistic teaching narrative? If not, well, we'll have time for more questions later, but I'm gonna hand it over to Karen, who's gonna be talking about the next component.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to talk about SET numeric scores, which is everyone's favorite thing. But okay, the first thing I was going to say is like many components of your file, there's like putting it together in your file, which is the tip of the iceberg. The important thing is to have it. And so the thing you want to keep in mind about having it is getting your students to fill out the SETs. Sometimes this requires a bit of active work on your part, but it doesn't look good if you have many classes or sections that don't meet the threshold. And as a result, the SET is not generated. So that is something, if that has been happening to you, you need to figure out a way to stop it from happening so that you have these reports to include. It also generally works to your benefit to try to increase the participation so that you're getting like 60%, 80% of the students filling it out, not like 40 or 30. Because usually, I think usually you do better the more students you get to fill it out, because the ones that are like, oh, this class was pretty good, but it wasn't my favorite ever. You want those people actually filling it out, not just the ones that have super strong feelings about your class. There are strategies to increase participation. So if you're struggling with that, you can reach out to us and we will help you. What is required is just that you include a giant PDF with all your numeric SET printouts, either from like the whole time you've taught at AU, if you're either pre-tenure or have been here less than 6 years, or if you are coming up for full and continuing appointment and you've been here for like substantially longer than 6 years, it's just the past 6 years. If you have some sort of unusual situation where you have more than 6 years of data, but you're still coming up for tenure, you should probably consult with your chair or your dean and find out exactly what needs to be included. And so basically, you also need to include a PDF of the statistics for your department over the same period of time. This is something that I believe you may have to reach out to the chair to download for you. I don't know that you can download it yourself, but this is just so that you can be compared to others in your department. The way you get this, presumably you have accessed this in the past when you get that email that your SETs are ready. So you just log into this https myamerican.blueray.com. There's a little tab that says reports, and then this is super fun, especially if you have 6 years of data. You just have to download these reports one by one. You have to figure out which ones you need. So for this component, you don't want the ones with the narrative comments. You want the ones that do not have the narrative comments, because the narrative comments are for a different part of your teaching portfolio, and you don't need to include it for every single class you've taught. And so you just go through and you download them. And this, I don't know how much experience y'all have combining PDFs. Combining PDFs is a major task you have to embark upon as you prepare your file. Some of you that are more in computer science, you're going to be like, this is like the dumbest, most basic thing I've ever seen. But not everyone has given that much thought to this, so it's a helpful tip. When you're downloading these things, it makes your life much easier if you name them so they automatically sort the way you want them to sort. So generally, you're going to want them to go from like earliest, like just in chronological order. So if you give them numbers like 01 and then what it is, 02 and then what it is, it'll just go 01, 02, 03. If you name it like fall 20, it won't sort right because it'll do all the fall ones and then all the spring ones, which isn't what you want. So this will help you a lot. And then when you go to create a merged PDF, you just like merge them all. You also need to remember to use 2-digit numbers because otherwise it'll sort like 1 and then 10. It's really annoying. So that is the main thing. If you're having trouble combining PDFs, we can help you with that too. So another thing that is something that I would recommend, although it's not required, is that you do something to highlight the important patterns or trends in your SETs. I know these things, they do not necessarily provide a fair or accurate picture of the quality of your teaching. We all know they're biased in different ways. At the same time, they are considered quite heavily when these files are being evaluated. And so it's sort of in your best interest to point out the strengths of your numerical SET data. And I think this is something that comes a bit more naturally to people in quantitative fields than others. But I think what you want to point out is like, one, have you been improving over time? It's always good to be able to point out and show that you've been improving over time, either with a graph or a table, or with like including the numbers in a paragraph. You might also want to show like how your SETs vary based on what kind of courses you teach. Like some of us end up teaching classes that just don't get as good SETs because they're like, core classes or they're really hard quantitative classes. And no matter who teaches them, they are lower. And so you can strategically include data that puts your SETs in context and shows you in the best light. And so I think what you want to do as you look at these is think like, what is the best story I can tell about the strength of my teaching using these numbers? And then not just dump like 30 pages of PDF printouts in there and not say anything about it. You want to tell people exactly how they should interpret those numbers and what conclusion they should come to that is in your favor as much as possible that can be supported by the facts, if that makes sense. Because nobody is going to be able to look through all those printouts and like develop a coherent story. And they may latch on to like one negative thing instead of seeing an overall good trend that you want them to see. Let's see. The other thing, which only applies, I think, to certain fields, is like if you teach classes that have different labs that all like you're just in one lecture, but the lecture has 2 or 3 labs, it'll report those as different classes. And so when you calculate it, you would probably want to combine those because you don't want something to count 3 times just because there's 3 lab sections, but it was just you teaching one class. And you'd think that the system would be able to do this automatically, but it doesn't. So let's see.
I have hopes for work-based student though, it will do this better than poly.
And I would say like I now this is part of my job. So if you want help creating tables or graphs, I'm happy to help you. I can like share our scripts or just like I really like making graphs and tables, so I can help you out with yours. No, so you have to put it in your teaching narrative. Yeah, so it would say something like, when I started out, I had never taught at the university level before, and my SETs were somewhat below the department averages. Over the next 3 years, I did this and this and this, resulting in a steady upward trend, as you can see in figure 1, like that kind of thing. Yeah. No, the SET PDFs, it's what is required in that section is just the merged printouts. That's it. Anything. Yes. Or in your it could be in a self-reflection, but it's not in that part, but you can definitely use that data in the other parts. And then, yeah. I think that's it. Okay. Thank you. Let's see, and then we're on, I don't know, this one's blank. Yeah, any questions?
Something you might want to keep in mind is that sometimes your class belong to a graded class that has multiple sections and they have the same type of content. So that might or might not work for you. So you always be careful of what kind of classes that you have. Are you owning the class per se, or are you part of a team that's teaching the same course in different sections? And if that's so, and that changes SETs, those are the kind of things you might want to add in your narrative as well.
Yeah, because in some classes, I've definitely talked to colleagues about this. If it's if you're in the math department or something and there's 10 sections, you really can't control the kind of tests you give, the book you use. And so, yeah, saying things like that, you might want to compare yourself against other instructors that teach the same course. And that also, you might have to ask your chair for that data. You might not be able to get it yourself, but yeah. You're welcome.
All right, so if you remember the chart earlier with the red boxes and then 3 blue boxes underneath, the top red boxes require things, meaning we need what Anna described, those holistic narratives. We will need what Karen described, which is that those PDFs that you become experts on producing. And then we go to the bottom. And so in each of the blue boxes, there are multiple choices, and you are to choose one. But we always say, check with your unit to see if they tend to have a certain inclination to look for one of these styles of ways to show your teaching in particular. So let's look at what are the possibilities. So I'm going to describe 4 possibilities that are in that chart. The first one is annotated syllabus. So you may annotate your syllabus, or you may annotate an assignment or a lesson, let's say. The website for the Center for Faculty Excellence, where our dear colleagues here are located, have beautiful resources online to show us how to do that. They have examples even there, but you can also ask colleagues to see if anyone is willing to show you if they have done, any of these choices, what does it look like? So what I'll say about annotated syllabus, this is an opportunity in which you can describe part of your, it's like metacognition, right? You want to say why, the choices you made, why, how does that reflect that philosophy that you're talking about in the narrative? This is an occasion where you can show things like that. This might be a place where you show how you responded to those SETs. There might have been something in there that prompts you to change your syllabus, and you can point to that. Or comments from a previous review. I mentioned that earlier, that you may have a letter from a previous appointment. And so now is a time where you can show in your annotations how you addressed those comments. So these are ways in which you can shine. So this is one choice. You can choose this as one of your components of your portfolio. The other one is professional development activities. You know, we have the Ann conference, so for sure that's one that can go in here. And so what we're looking for here would be for you to summarize those activities that you engaged in the period that you're covering in your file, where you get to say how those activities were about learning, about teaching, something there you got that was helpful for your teaching and learning. So you make that sort of rationale and you summarize those activities for people. One of the things I would say for this is to think of impact too. Right? What do you think is the significance, the impact that this is having in your teaching, right? The third option that you can consider is feedback. The feedback that you give to students in assignments or any kind of assessments. So this is a chance to show your reviewers how you do that. So you can give examples of that feedback that you have provided. And part of it, again, is trying to sort of explain why this matter, the way you did it. Maybe it is connected to that philosophy, that pedagogy that you explain in the narrative. And you can try to say how doing it this way, that whatever you choose to show, may have a positive impact in your teaching. The last one I'll discuss. Oh, I want to say that I created this one with AI. Lots of prompts to get to this gentleman here. So a written self-evaluation is the last choice. This is an opportunity if you have someone video recording your lesson, then you take that lesson, you analyze it, you evaluate it. Again, making connections to things in the narrative or things in the SETs that you're responding to. So that's one choice. So that will be teaching in the classroom, a video. Again, Anna's point earlier, do you need to do this now before we're done with the semester? Can someone come and record you? If you choose to do this option. The other one is outside the classroom. So how can you tell your reviewers the impact, the kinds of things that you're doing outside? So what do we mean by outside? Do you do community-based work? Do you do project-based teaching, learning? A lot of experiential learning. Is that what you bring to your classroom? So if you do that to your teaching, and it's involving experiences outside the classroom, this is a great opportunity to showcase that and to say, again, always making those connections to that narrative. How does it connect to the way you think about teaching or pedagogy, your philosophy, etc. And then I didn't show this, but at some point we have also heard that it is possible to do a fifth thing, but you have to talk to your unit. Is there something you have in mind, an idea to demonstrate your self-assessment that was not part of this four? If you have a creative thought, you could share it with your chair or your unit to see if this is something they would be interested in having you do. Right, so now, Abel,
Oh, I think you have questions.
oh, yes. Una pregunta, una cuestión.
So if I write a self-review of my course recording, will the committee watch the recording or they just read my self?
Good question, because I haven't done this option. Anyone has been in a review where they have to look at the video? Have you ever done that?
That's from the former TRL report, but I didn't put it in there. It was just to like improve. So I mentioned having done it, but I didn't.
Because I would think perhaps there has to be a link somewhere, I would expect.
I feel like you should save the file, but in most cases, unless people start thinking you're misrepresenting it, I don't think anyone's gonna sit there and watch it for an hour.
Uh-huh.
But you can
But-
hyperlink PDF.
Exactly.
And you could fit that way.
But I think you should make sure that you have it in case someone
Yes,
has, like,
yes.
finished.
Right. And have it in a way that may be available privately, like sometimes like YouTube may have a private way to show a video. I would say that be at the ready. Or AU may have a way to do it, like Cultura or something like that. But that's a great question. I was assuming, yes, somebody will have access if they want to see it. Yes.
If you do this, summary of professional development or executive, so one count, what's the?
I think you could, yeah, go back, yeah.
So I have not seen links.
Your stuff doesn't have.
No.
Because this is a separate, right? A separate document. It's not part of your narrative, your 3,000 words, right? So go for it, but don't make anybody upset that they're reading a novel out of it.
Find the part about
A link.
part, like,
Yeah, too many pages to read. Another great reason to talk to your units when you're preparing this, right? To get a sense of what they're willing to read. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Okay. I'm going, I think it's this one, right?
Or this.
Oh, this is easier.
Oops.
Not working.
Well, it's. Then you can just use that.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. How's everyone doing? So far, so good? Writing good notes? This is the point in the classroom when we sort of pause and make sure everyone's fine, right? Yeah. And if you notice, they're helping me because I left my glasses in the office. So first and most important thing, be prepared. Do not be like me without your glasses. But anyhow, just to touch base on a little bit of what my colleagues have done, have described so far, everything that has been described up to this point is really up to you. You can work on your own at your own terms. But right now, we're going to enter an aspect of your portfolio that requires someone else. And because of that, I invite you to really be careful with your planning and the timing of the peer assessment. For example, if you are planning on submitting files in the fall, just like Anna mentioned earlier, that's what we are doing this session today, because if you need a peer assessment done before that time, it's still time in the semester to contact a colleague and ask for help. So just keep those things in mind. In this period or for this component, you need to work with your own calendar, but also the calendar of someone else. So just be careful with that. So that's one thing before we talked about the two elements. The other one is rubrics. And that's why, again, go back to your unit and check to make sure they don't have or they have a particular rubric that they would like you to use for your peer observations. Some units might have a preference or a rubric that they can use, and then you do not need to reinvent the wheel. But if you do not, that is also fine. And we have the center with great resources and great examples of what to do for this peer assessment. So keep those things in mind as you plan. And even in the action plan, you might want to add, maybe this is the month I would like someone to visit my class. So this is the lesson I would like to show and share with a colleague. So for the peer assessment, you have two choices, right? You have the peer write-up based on in-person classroom or Zoom if you teach online only, and the review of the classroom video. Sometimes you want to invite someone to be in Zoom with you and you're teaching online, or maybe as in the description said, you have a video already and someone will review that video, not necessarily be in the class with you. All right, that's one choice. And the other one is a peer review of course material. And in this point, you are not asking a colleague to join your class, but rather you're asking a colleague to review something that you have done for the classroom, okay? So at this point, I want you to really think about all this work and all these components are something that are your opportunity to highlight who you are and how important you are to AU. It's not just a list of items. This is the opportunity to you really show and guide the reader and the committee to see what is important to you and your teaching, okay? So those are the two choices. Thank you. Thank you. So let's talk about the first choice, right? The peer assessment or the peer observation. Meet with your observer ahead of class to discuss what specific areas you would like to have addressed. Introduce the observer at the beginning of the class and explain their presence, and refer your observer to our website in case they want some ideas or how to put together a report for you. Okay, so that initial conversation is very important because you want to share some background information with your colleague about the kinds of things that maybe they might want to be looking for in your class. Okay, so be mindful of that. I am going to the next one. Thank you. So here I just wanted to give you a sample of what I do in the reports that I usually do for my colleagues. In my case, I teach in the Department of World Languages and Cultures, and we usually have classes that are considered language skills, and some others are considered content. So for the language skills, we have class observations that actually focus merely on task-based pedagogy or maybe second language acquisition. So if we have something like that, that is a rubric already standard, we use that. If not, for example, you're just teaching a class that is not part of a bigger curriculum, then I would focus on the content and how my colleague is really sharing that content with students, okay? So after I observe a class or I watch a video, I write my report and I include 3 parts. This is not something that needs to happen, but I suggest you think about the kinds of things or the kinds of outline or organization in the report that you would like in your portfolio. So in my case, I divide my report into 3 parts. Part 1 is a description of the instructor's lesson plan. So that includes all the logistics of the class, the name of your colleague, the name of the class, the date, how many students, whether the class was face-to-face or in person or in Zoom, or whatever it is. That's when you describe the logistics of the class. And in that part, you include the agenda. If the instructor has an agenda, then you write down everything that is going to happen during your visit. That way, the report already has an idea where this is going. After that, we focus on part 2, and it's a quantitative observation of the teaching practices based on measures related to the instructor field. So if, for example, I am working with a colleague that is teaching a language course, we already have that in common, and we work on second language acquisition and task-based activities and see how those are presented in the classroom. But if it isn't on content, then we just really focus on a graded area and about the area of expertise of your colleague. And part 3 is the opposite, is the qualitative observation, including the most positive aspects of the teaching practice and also suggestions for the future. These class observations are not meant to be punishment, are not meant to be negative or punitive. They're really an exercise for you to have the opportunity to be seen by someone else and get some feedback that is hopefully going to be positive, so you work on your own pedagogy. So think about those things as we move on. And I think I have one more, Anna. I'm so sorry. Yes. So that is number 1. That's the most common one, which is someone visiting your class. The other option that is also acceptable is the review of course materials. Sometimes we notice that if we run out of time and there's no one that can visit our class, we need to think about another option, and this is a good option as well, as actually a very good one, which is you ask a colleague to review something that you have done for the classroom. Could be a syllabus, could be a lesson plan the entire day and how to put it together. Could also be a rubric, an assessment, or a project that you're proud of. For example, if you're working on experiential learning and you have a really cool project that you want to highlight in your portfolio, this is the place maybe you want to get some feedback and really elevate that work. So if you choose that, you need to identify a document that, or a project that showcases your teaching style, your best practices,
or if you are redesign a course, you might want to mention that. You want to identify and meet with your peer before they review your work and also after to really gather the whole, I would say, organic comments from your colleagues. And of course, if you or your colleague would like some ideas how to do this, go back to our resources. So there's a lot of things that you need to do, but I would say if you have to live with something today about this is identify when are you planning on work or to work on this, okay? Thank you. Questions? Yes.
So the peer review of course material.
Yes.
Does end up with that peer produced report to the document.
Absolutely, yeah. They and you may or might not have to submit the project because maybe the project is a video, but what you would submit with the portfolio is the report that your colleague have prepared about that content. That's a very good question. Anybody else? Yes.
Is there a requirement of the rank of the colleague who is eligible to do the peer review?
That's a great question. I don't think there's such a thing. And no.
Well, they have to be above us.
Oh, is that right?
In our department.
Well, again, check your unit. Yeah, because I think you're going to get mixed responses. That's a very good question. Yes. Right. Yeah. You just need one. Yeah. Yeah. You only need one.
Get assessment like every year.
Okay.
But would I choose like the most recent one, or do you want me to choose the best one or the most comprehensive one? Like which one of those would you say I put in there?
That's a very good idea. I would say, first of all, check with your chair or with the bylaws of a unit and see if there's a specific preference, like the latest one, for example, or the first three and combine it. If there's not such a thing, pick something that you're proud of. And that would be my recommendation.
But definitely ask them.
Yes.
If they prefer multiple.
Yeah.
Multiple.
Yeah.
If your unit is
My
like
unit
that.
might want multiple.
Yeah.
They are like that, you want to make sure you do what they want.
Yeah, each unit has their own guidelines.
Yeah.
And if there isn't one specifically, there are some term guidelines that are, for tenure promotion, there should be, but there's some term guidelines that fall in omnibus set of guidelines, so it should, I would think it would be in there.
Yeah.
For tenure promotion, is a guideline for how many are in there?
There are guidelines for, in general, and it would include that within the guidelines, all the pieces of the file.
So tenure and promotion, each unit has to write guidelines. Yeah, get posted on the faculty website so that there's transparency, right? And people know what to expect. Even with those guidelines, you have to still talk.
Yeah.
Because it's not as specific. So to leave some, space,
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone will fit the one mold. Not everything is as specific as sometimes we would prefer.
Absolutely.
That's the set of guidelines, tenure and tenure line, tenure track. For term faculty, we went into a process recently, I don't know how many years now, right? Where the units could decide, let's go with the big one, beautiful. And not have every department writing their own. And so that's what you will find in that website that Abby showed us, that you have college or school of business with the guidelines for tenure, for term. So the term faculty have gone into the omnibus to make it easier for the units. But then on top of the college or school, you may have, where you're pointing to, the omnibus, they call it, which is almost like the whole institution. Is that right? Because that's what I was looking at them, and it's like a whole institution guideline. And then each college or school looks at those and says, okay, we like them, we keep them, except this, this, and that. And that's why they have the college or school own guidelines.
And if I might add, that's exactly right. So it's not like you need to work through multiple bylaws, right? The big one is basically the inspiration for the actual bylaws that you have at a unit. So going back to the questions, like I even heard from reactions, oh, they recommended 2 or they recommended 3. The guidelines or the bylaws of your unit would determine how your portfolio should look like. And those bylaws are reflected or are an interpretation of the OMBUS grant guidelines, if that makes sense.
If my unit, I know my unit does not have a guideline.
Okay. Okay.
So you think that your advice would be I just ask the chair of rank and tenure what they. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, but I would say, although you're not required to put in more than one of these, you may want to consider getting it done once, especially if you have time, because if you get it done once and it's not very good, and that's all that there is, that's kind of rough. Like, it's better if you get it done once and it's not that good, but then you can like get it done again the next year and be like, oh, I got this feedback and then it. So if you have time, I think it would be better to allow that to happen because it shows like one that you were really on top of things. And you can also make specific changes to address any concern. Most of your colleagues, I think, would be nice and would not write super critical things in there, but you kind of never know. Sorry, I have one other question about this.
Absolutely.
I have asked colleagues in the past to do this, and they've said, well, come to my class and teach my class, and I will evaluate you based on that. That's weird. No. So get someone else.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I have for this semester. That's what I was told by tenured faculty.
Not by your chair. Not by your chair.
That's what's required.
Yeah.
That's not, because it doesn't have to be someone from your department either that does this. It just has, like, I did that. Yeah, it could be someone, I think they should be like in our department, we actually have a rule that it can't be someone from our department. Like it has to be some, because it felt like it would be weird if the same person was on like the rank and tenure committee as had written the thing. Yeah. And so this is the person on the rank and tenure committee who said, come to my class and teach my class.
Probably not.
Maybe check with the department chair or a given faculty coordinator or your associate dean too.
Okay.
Clarification. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Remember omnibus, what was that, what we use?
Omnibus lines, yeah. That's for term and continuing appointment.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist for tenure side, the omnibus, documents.
Yes, that was, I think that in 2023.
When continuing appointments were implemented.
I think there's one more question, yeah.
So, like, I'm sorry, this is a basic question, but I really want to clarify. 3-year reappointment and then continuing appointment. Can you just explain that to them? It's like what is like the difference?
So this is for term, right? For
Yeah,
term faculty?
the term.
Okay, so I guess we can talk about that. So when you are first getting appointments, your contracts as a term faculty, it will be for limited number of years. Then there will be a certain period of time that you've been here and reappointed.
If
Now
you're
you're
eligible to.
And so at that point, if you're eligible, Abby, could you remind us, how are we eligible?
Yes,
That's it. 1 year 5, right?
It depends on what the position was hired for. We do have some term contracts that are for a specific period of time and they would not be eligible for continuing appointment.
Even if they've been here 10 years or whatever.
Well, we'd have to check. I don't know the specifics of that, but there are research faculty, there are various reasons that someone is hired into a position. But in that case, your department chair would be a good resource to the associate dean just to make sure that you would be eligible for this. But it has streamlined the reappointment process and it does not require you to continue to be reappointed after you reach a continuing appointment.
These words are repeated, it makes me
sorry, yes. But before that was available, faculty every 3 to 5 years would have to continue to reapply for reappointment. So this came about just to help with the administrative burden, the faculty burden.
Yeah, because I mean, like, the process is you do 1 year reappointment. Then after 3 years, you get to the 3-year reappointment, you get your 3-year contract. So
And
I
then
guess
at
at
the
that point
end,
is
you apply for a continuing appointment. And then at that point, you would not have to reapply again unless you are applying for promotion.
Wait, so is that 1 year, 3 year, 3 year, or is 1 year, 3 year then?
Then continue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 years.
It is a
No.
6-year process.
1 year.
So it's a 3 1-year contracts, then you apply for 1 3-year contract, and then you can apply for a continuing appointment.
Yeah, if your term back in the day, it used to be after the 3 years, it would go for 5, that disappears. So after 3, it's basically you reach a point whether it decides to keep you, it can be a continuing appointment or, stop.
And the key there is that there was a turn point, right, in the calendar when it ends. Now with continuing, there's no turn point, that we know, no date.
And then just to clarify too, when we are entering our 6th year, that's when we apply.
Correct.
So we're really just giving you 5 years of stuff, not 6.
Yeah, it's within your 6th year that you're applying, yes.
And I just to say, if you want to know more about continuing appointment, I'll be happy to share what happened at the Senate practice today, or the details.
Right, I'm going to move on to the last and 5th part of the teaching portfolio. So we have a little bit of time for the group conversations as well. And so this is where you will include as one of the alternatives, the narrative feedback from your students, those written out comments that are at the end of every teaching evaluation. You're required to pick, if you choose this option, 1 course per year, and then dating back as many years as you're required to include in your file. And I would say, I think it's really important to actually read through every single thing, every single sentence in these narratives. And then when you make your choices, find ones that really align with what you are writing in your teaching statement, and vice versa. You may actually even read these first before you start writing your teaching statements. So you can pull information from there. And then I would say be strategic, like pick the ones that you feel really highlight your strengths. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward but time-consuming process, can also be very rewarding. And yeah, more question?
For academic year or calendar year?
1 per academic year. Then there are some other options. So for whatever reason, you might not want to use the narrative comments. And so one thing you can do, and we just had a round of this, actually, Johannes was one of the faculty who took advantage of it. So the Center for Faculty Excellence, and also in the past CTRL, provides these mid-semester course analyses where a team member will come out to your class and spend about 25-30 minutes with your students at the end of class, surveying them and having a conversation with them about the class and your teaching. And then they will write up a report for you that you will submit as part of your teaching portfolio. And then there's a third option, which I don't think exists in an organized matter at AU, but it could be in our future. That is to have a student observer committee. Some universities do this, where they have students who actually go to other classes, not their own professors' classes, to observe being in the classroom, but from a student perspective, and then write up a report. I don't know how often that's used, or if it's ever used, if you can just recruit your own students somehow. I'm not sure, actually. I would say probably the most common item here is the narrative portions of the SATs, because we don't have a whole lot of requests for MCAs typically. Any questions about these? Yes.
Clarify, narrative portions will this submit 16?
If it's for 6 years, yeah. So it depends a little bit on how many years your file requires. So it's 1 per year, one course per year.
I have 6 years. It's only 6. Without any
Yeah. Yeah, and you choose which ones. Yes.
Is it too late to do the mid-semester course analysis with your?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say no, but don't tell anyone else. Well, I mean, it's not mid-semester anymore. So I would say, We would have to think about it. I mean, the another positive aspect of doing it mid-semester as a mid-semester course analysis is that you can actually take the results and you can then implement them in your class, and it can have great effects actually on your SATs at the end of class. But the closer you get towards the end of the semester, I think the harder it is to do a survey like this with your students, where they are still in a space where they feel like there's enough time left in the semester to. Yeah, so I'm not gonna, yeah, we'll discuss it and yeah, and see, because I do realize there was a very short window of time between the email that went out and then the window of having these done, so we'll see, but maybe there's an alternative as well. Can you actually, maybe you know this, Abby, can you do, so we also have, actually, you can disseminate a survey in your class on your own at any time during the semester. And I believe is that also results you can use? No, is that a no? Well, so that would be more of a formative assessment you can do for yourself then, but can also be helpful in terms of improving your teaching in a way that will have a positive.
This, which is reporting. More
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, over here. Yeah.
In front there.
I think it's on the back, perhaps as well.
Okay, well, one at a time. Let's start with you.
Okay, so suppose I choose MCA option, is it also per academic year?
I mean, you would submit a single one. Yeah, it's not one per year. It's like a single one for the entire, that will cover this requirement. Yeah.
It's like having the peer visiting, so there's the student talking to someone who comes.
Yeah. It's kind of like a focus group, really, but with some survey components. So first there, and then it's you. Yeah.
So where does advising fit in the teaching portfolio, if at all, just the narrative part?
I would think so.
So, yeah, service.
It could be service as
Yeah.
well, yep, so it could be service, yep, to the department. And we get that question with elements too a lot, whether something goes in teaching or service. But that, you might want to talk to your department chair just to see where it might be a better place to highlight it.
Like in my department, they think of it as part of teachings. To think of ways in which you're mentoring, you're guiding, you're offering advice. And then for some colleagues also connected to research. Because they can discuss how they have open doors, right, to students with the research.
I have one more
Our
question.
favorite phrase today is speak to your unit.
Yeah, they know your work and they know the field better than.
And how they like to count or value those things. Do they
Yes.
like to see it in teaching? Do they like to see it as? Or can you double it?
Mhm. Did we have one more question over here first? Yeah, and then it's your.
So I guess.
I thought it's a starting point, yeah, and they again.
Based on the number of years.
Yeah, and there are two separate pieces to that, although it would be one file, but promotion is a separate action from continuing appointment, although of course it's one file, so they'll be able to help with that. But the faculty manual has the requirements for the promotion to each rank. And there is one, if you're seeking promotion to senior professorial lecturer, it's traditionally 5 years of service before you can be promoted to that.
And just to add to what you were saying, sometimes it goes together or sometimes it needs to be treated separately. So you just have to talk to the chair.
One more question up here and then
We don't really have to this like boards read the comments.
yeah, that's right. So you have to submit the numerical scores, but the narratives you can choose whether you submit those or one of the other options here, number 2 or 3. Yeah. Yes.
You got that. So for example, maybe the key part of your teaching portfolio, yeah, you would copy the student comments from those SET reports and put them in there.
Yeah, or split the PDFs, like a similar process, but the reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
for that,
Okay,
yeah.
so you said that you can down.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
Then the ones that have notes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's two.
But
That's right.
I don't think you're not required to remove the numeric parts from it, and I'm not sure. It might actually, if you tried to do that, it might remove like relevant information for showing that you did it for one every year, so I was maybe just.
Good point, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we have all of 8 minutes left, but that's because of all of your many great questions. But so what we had envisioned for this part, and we can do the 8 minutes. I think if you can stay, like let's use this time. So you have those action plan forms on your tables that we created. So this is meant to be sort of a fill it out beginning of a plan for yourself, like starting with talk to your department once or your unit, something we've said at least 10 times today. So what you can do with this time now, so we're going to actually spread out and sit with you at the table so that you have one of us at your table to answer any additional questions you might have. You're welcome to talk to each other as well if you have specific things you want to share and ask. And then I would also say if there are any questions you can think of that have remained unanswered today, there is a sheet on the paper where you can actually ask that question and fill in your name and email address, and then we will find an answer and get back to you within a few days. Other than that, I'm just quickly going to skip to this slide because I suspect some of you might have to leave. You can always request a one-on-one consultation. You'll have this link directly in the sheet in the slides when I share them later this afternoon. And then don't write down May 13th because it could be on a different day that week, but we do have a follow-up more extensive working session where we're going to be talking about more components of the files and where you can really workshop it and have folks available to help answer questions during that time while having coffee and snacks. And then always email cfe@american.edu with any questions as well. And with that, let's go ahead and start our group discussions. And thank you all for coming. So.